to another episode of Questionnaire. Today I'm joined by Toño Montes and sadly not by Dr. Stone. But we're going to continue discussing the most important topic of the bilateral relationship, which is migration. It's a topic that not only we are discussing, but it's also the US actively discussing with the administration here in Mexico. Just as a primer, on Tuesday, March 28th, there will be a meeting led by Roberta Jacobson with members of the Mexican government to discuss many topics, among them migration, which is the topic of the year, as well as the economic reactivation of the zones in the border, which have been closed for non-essential reasons, but they will start to open them up slowly. Tonio, can you tell us a bit more about why migration continues to be the topic and it looks like it will be the topic of the year?
Sure, Valeria. Thank you for having me in this program. I'm thrilled to be here, and we will miss Dr. Stone in this episode. But yeah, I think what you say is pretty accurate. The largest crisis that President Biden is holding or is overpassing is migration, besides the obviously harsh situation that COVID-19 has represented for the United States specifically. Let's remember that it's the country who has had more cases and more deaths related to COVID-19. But today and probably the next month and the previous month has been the topic of this debate is around migration, because as the government changed, as Trump administration left the White House and Biden administration took office, there was a feeling, there was a hope for the migrants that perhaps President Biden could be more soft or more comprehensive with the causes of migration and the difficult times that these people are living, specifically in Central America, in Haiti, and in other parts of the world, because lots of not only humanitarian related disasters, social disasters or difficulties have stroked those countries, but also environmental ones. Let's remember the hurricanes that passed over Central America last year destroyed a lot of houses, destroyed a lot of constructions where people lived, and these people were forced to migrate. And this first challenge that the Biden government is facing is the migration, or the increase, the unexpected increase in migration, just because he was a Democrat president and a Republican president of Donald Trump represented a barrier for these migrants. They didn't believe they could pass the border with Trump in the office, and they do believe they can do it with President Biden, which is not entirely true.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Biden has taken some great steps for migrants already in the US, such as reactivating DACA, which is a program that helps children that were brought into the United States by their parents to become legal residents, and that was temporarily suspended by Donald Trump. Nowadays, Biden still has a closed border. He could allege that this closed border is mainly because of COVID reasons, but as we all know, it does have to do with COVID, but it also has to do with the fact that, like you said, Biden is expecting the biggest wave of migrants in the last 20 years. So, and then he also claims that Mexico is refusing to take them. So if the Mexican government is refusing to take them and he has no other place to put migrants while they wait for their asylum applications, then it gets even harder to control this. Because like you said, it's forced migration. They are fleeing because of economic reasons, because of climate change, they are fleeing because of political reasons. It's not like they just up and chose one day just to leave, like, oh wait, I want to go live in the United States next, and then Canada, and then they have no choice. They are doing this out of desperation. So it's really hard to get to the United States and then be told like, no, we're taking you back to your country. And that's a future that's happening. I think it was CNN that said back in February 2021, most of them were actually returned. Like there were 97,000 migrants that crossed the border illegally, and then out of those, 70,000 were returned. That's a huge number. So,
Yeah,
and then it gets harder to return them when Mexico
this
does.
is
Yeah, Go,
Yeah,
no, go
so sorry, Valeria. I
ahead.
was going to say that is probably going to be the most consistent and most difficult crisis to address because of the nature of the problem. Migration is not something new for the United States. Since the early 1990s, we have seen these processes of massive waves of people migrating into the United States for economic, social, political, environmental reasons. Mainly the economic one has been the most persistent cause of migration, but it's not a one-way factor that determines that this year has the most increasingly numerous wave of migrants going into the border, because also COVID-19 struck economically in Central America. So this means that more people lost their jobs. And specifically, and we have discussed that in previous programs, the children's situation. And this is very, very hard to deal, because at the end of the day, they're children who are forced to leave their families, to leave their homes, and go to a country that does not want at the first moment to receive all of them, or does not have the capabilities to control all this child migration, that do not have a, let's say, a legal status or a legal personality to respond for their actions. They're childs at the end of the day. And this generates a lot of pressure in Biden's administration, because they need to keep up a discourse and a narrative that they managed in the campaign, that they were not going to be the same as Donald Trump. They were not going to be this government that treated childs and put them in cages and treat them like, I don't want to say an offensive word, but they treated them so badly that even most of human rights activists define this as crimes or as atrocious actions. And I think that's true. And the progressive side of the Democratic Party is also claiming and is asking Joe Biden to not be the same president as Donald Trump was regarding migration. But I think it's pretty hard to change by the end of the day, the policy by itself.
Yeah, and it's hard to change it just in months. I mean, I wish we all could go just like this and then policies would change, like horrible policies would be deleted, but it's hard. I'm not justifying Biden's actions because I don't agree with all of them, but I do understand that it's hard to completely change the migration systems all at once. What I do think is different from what Trump did is that he's allowing minors to stay. So as a minor, they connect you to the Department of Health, and then they help you find someone to stay with the United States, because most minors that arrive in the United States have family already there. Because actually here at the lab, we took a class on migration, and we had this thing that was push factors and pull factors. Push is what pushes you to migrate, and then pull is like what pulls you specifically to that place. And one of the main pull factors is this diaspora, which is basically like the social aspect of migration. Like you go there because you already have family there, because you know people there. Most of these minors go there to meet up with their parents, to meet up with their family, to because they're sent with a friend of a friend, because their parents are sending them over there in searches of a better life. And I think it doesn't take a lot of empathy and compassion to understand that it's a really, really hard situation. And it's an awful situation to be at when you're a minor. Because if it's already awful when you're an adult, it's a hard situation, because crossing Mexico is not an easy situation at all. Then as a minor, it gets even worse. And to just get there and have no help at all, I think it's awful.
Yeah, we can see, for example, what you say about the diaspora and the reasons that pull migrants into specifically the United States is that, for example, half of the people of El Salvador are living in the United States. So if we count the El Salvadorians living in the United States, it's equal to the half of the El Salvadorians living in El Salvador. So we can see, also with other countries, Dominican Republic, even Mexico, around 33
Yeah, you
million.
can see it with Puebla. I think
Yeah,
the second city with the most people from Puebla in the world is New York. So there's a lot of Mexicans there too.
yeah. So that's one of the reasons that pulls migrants to go specifically to the United States, and to seek protection for the government and from their families that are there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's going to be harder because people are expecting this migratory wave to be worse than the 2019 one, where the deportations amounted up to 144,000 people were sent back after crossing all of Mexico just to get to the United States.
Yeah, and I think President Biden needs to, and he's taking it seriously because, as you mentioned, former U.S. ambassador to Mexico, Roberta Jacobson, is taking things pretty hard and pretty serious from the first moment because she knows what the causes of migrations are and she knows the magnitude of the problem. Uh, well, at this moment, there's not a United States ambassador to Mexico. Is yet to be appointed, but uh, Roberta Jacobson, and also I would like to comment later the role that Vice President Kamala Harris has taken over this situation,
Yeah, I
but
was going to
specifically,
bring it up.
yeah, Roberta Jacobson, as you mentioned, is going to be this Sareen of the southern border, and she's going to have to deal with this first massive crisis that the United States government is having regarding migration.
Yeah, exactly. Like you say, we don't have an ambassador to from the US to Mexico yet, which is curious given the importance that Biden has placed on this relationship. But he has made up for it in naming very important people within his administration to deal with the issues in Mexico. Like you said, former ambassador Roberta Jacobson, and now he announced that VP Kamala Harris will take a more active role, which is different from what VPs usually do, and she will be dealing with the border and migration.
Yes, and this is, I think, something pretty important to take into account because, as you said, most of the vice president, or at least the ones in the 20th century, and some of them in the 21st century, uh, were some sort of a protocol position. They took some responsibilities of the president. They assisted to some events. Uh, they did this more formally required. Events that a vice president oftenly does. But I think since Kamala Harris is really expecting to at some point be the presidential candidate of the Democrats for the United States uh, presidency, she really needs to make her name up. She really has to show the American people that she's capable of managing crisis, that she's capable of standing up to the injustice of migration, and that she's willing to change the system that she has systematically criticized regarding the causes of migration. I think it's interesting the role that Kamala Harris is going to take because her relationship with Mexico has been a little bit strange, I would say. Let's remember she was one of the senators that voted against the ratification of the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement. It doesn't mean that she doesn't believe on the importance of the trade and the importance of the relationship by itself, but she did criticize a lot of the TEMEC standings and grounds regarding migration as well, because she believed that if there was going to be a treaty signed, it should also consider some key points of migration. We're yet to see if these key points of migration uh, are the ones that she's going to be fostering with this new position that President Biden has assigned her. And let's also remember that President Biden, curiously, had a similar role when he was vice president with the Obama administration. He was in charge of this southern border, so we can see a pattern being replicated. We don't know the outcome of this pattern yet, but we can see this Valeria, this new pattern being repeated.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. And I think it's more what you say. It's giving Kamala an active role to show what she can do in terms of policy so that when 2024 comes, then she can be the nominee and she will hopefully be the next president of the United States. Let's remember that Biden will most likely, due to his age and his intentions in some way, he will only be a one-term president. And this actually brings me to my next topic, which is the it has to do with vaccines. AMLO has said that he will vaccinate all migrants here in Mexico whenever those are available, which I think will not be anytime soon. But that will also be one of the topics that they will discuss on the meeting with Roberta Jacobson. And this brings me to the topic of the US getting vaccines to Mexico. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it was a quid pro quo? Because some people are alleging that it was given to us in exchange for us closing the border, the southern border, and then stopping any migrants from coming to Mexico and then getting to the United States.
I think, Valeria, that definitely was a quid pro quo, although both governments will deny that because it will not be politically right or politically accurate to say that was a quid pro quo. They're saying because the FDA hasn't yet approved the AstraZeneca vaccine, and COFEPRIS, which is the equivalent authority here in Mexico, has approved already these AstraZeneca vaccines, that they're leasing, that they're lending some vaccines. We don't know at which point the Mexico's government will have to repay for these vaccines. But curiously, after these vaccines were leased, Mexico decided to strengthen its southern border by closing it. Let's remember the famous phrase that former President Donald Trump used to say, that Mexico is doing great. Lopez Obrador is such a great friend of mine because he has 27,000 soldiers at the border. So obviously, President Biden isn't repeating these discourse, but is replicating the action by itself. So putting some inputs into Mexico for them to be willing and to cooperate and to do this, I want to say, this action of contention of migrants in exchange of Mexico's first necessity, which is vaccines at this moment, because the United States has already set or has already done with its vaccine supplies. So they have the vaccines that they need. They don't need to be looking for vaccines in other countries. We do need to seek for vaccines in other countries. And the fact that the United States, not only because of the geographical reasons that made it so close, but also the importance of the bilateral relations, at the end of the day, this bilateral relation defines almost 90% of Mexico's foreign policy. It is really important to have vaccines coming from the United States to Mexico. They are going to be arriving this Sunday, the 28th of March, 2.5 million vaccines in some sort of secret deal that Mexican Chancellor, Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Marcelo Ebrard, has made with his pair, Mr. Anthony Blinken, regarding the quid pro quo exchange for vaccines to migrants, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I have to I made a mistake with dates. The 28th is Sunday. I thought it was a Tuesday, but I don't know which day I live in this quarantine. But back to the topic. Yeah, I think it's been said by many analysts that the past administration's migration policy worked for them in the sense that they could detain migrants and they sent migrants to Mexico. And for the US, that works, whether it's humane, whether it's right, whether they have to respect the human rights of migrants. That's a whole other topic, but it worked for them. So it wouldn't make sense for Biden to change it completely. Of course, he will change the things that he campaigned against, like having migrants stay in Mexico forcefully while they wait for their process, like the child's in cages, like the family separation policies. But he's still using some migration detention facilities because he cannot put them anywhere else while they're waiting for their process. Again, whether that's right or not, it's a whole other topic. So it's hard. And I think it's exactly what you said. It's before it was like, if you don't agree to what we are telling you to do regarding migration, then we'll impose tariffs on you. Because Mexico's economy is so tied to the US that actually right now, like all financial experts say that if we are to expect an economic recovery after the crisis, it will depend on the US economic recovery. So before that was a bargaining chip, and now it's vaccines as a bargaining chip. And that, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, because 80% of Mexico's trade is with the United States. So uh, we can dimension the importance and the impact that this has. Uh, yes, and President Trump, when he wanted to gain some leverage over Mexico, he imposed trade tariffs into steel, into pork meat, or into other products that came into Mexico or that were exported to Mexico, because let's remember that also Mexico is an important trade partner of the United States. Of course, their economy is more diversified in the sense that they have more economic partners such as China, Canada, Mexico, and Japan, Germany, United Kingdom, the whole European Union. But Mexico's it's mainly focused on its international trade around the United States and Canada just a little bit. But uh, the important fact here is that Biden has a choice or has a pathway that he can follow. Whether he sticks with the probably most comfortable situation that is keeping the migration status as it is right now, that Mexico deals with the migrants that are coming from Central America to the United States, as President Trump did, and you just said that was a pretty comfortable situation. And it wouldn't make sense for President Biden to change it right away, because it would generate, if now we're talking of a crisis, if he did change that, it will be a completely chaos regarding the southern border. And this situation has also made the opposition to President Biden, the partisan opposition, so this means that the Republicans find an opportunity to remark that Trump's policy worked and Biden's didn't or doesn't work. And we have seen lots of senators, of Republican senators, visiting the southern border, which some of them include Senator Ted Cruz from Texas, the senators from South Dakota, the senators from Utah. There was this committee that went into the southern border to assess the situation. And they came up with really interesting talking points. Specifically, we have seen the controversies that Senator Ted Cruz has passed through the last months with the freezing waves that Texas suffered.
Yeah, there's no storm.
Yeah, the snowstorm and other situations. But I think that the Republicans are, politically speaking, capitalizing this situation or making profit of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think Ted Cruz should actually have no opinion on this, considering that he fled to Mexico when things got bad in the US. So I think it could kind of use his empathy and then understand why migrants are fleeing to the US when things are bad in their home country. But Ted Cruz is a whole other topic. We could spend hours talking about him. But yeah, like you said, they went on this official trip, excursion to the Rio Grande and to see what the crisis is there like. He allegedly saw smugglers and cartels taunting the border patrols, and then he said that they pay from $4,000 to $5,000 to smugglers, and then the Biden administration just releases them. So I think it is such a, what they did was ridiculous. You cannot see anything on the video. The whole internet was mocking Ted Cruz actually for this. He was also slammed. And while I do think that smugglers and traffickers and drug cartels are in the border and they're a huge problem, you cannot put migrants in the same category as them. Like it doesn't make any sense. If he's applying for an asylum request, he's most likely running from exactly that type of violence back in their home country. So why would they do the same? It Yeah, it's crazy, and I think it, like you said, it's going to continue to be an opportunity to politicize the whole situation by the Republicans being like, oh, this is all happening and the crisis is going to happen because you reverse Trump's policies, like Trump's most important policies. Well, the reality is that it doesn't have to do anything with reversing Trump's policies or not. It has to do with the fact that there's a pandemic, there's an economic crisis, the political situation is not that great in Central America, and there were natural disasters. Like, those are four factors that have nothing to do with Trump. Those are the reasons people are going to the United States.
Yeah, also this fits the speech of let's restart building the wall. So let's finish the wall. Basically, some senators said and established this hashtag in Twitter that let's finish the wall, seeing as if the wall will make any difference. So the thing is, yes, migrants are crossing the border, but the thing is, yes, the border patrol are capturing them or are sending them into these facilities, of these migration facilities, that we have seen that there's lots of children with it. They're overwhelmed, these facilities. They cannot uh, have any more migrants. Also, let's remember that this is not just one point of the border situation. There's a 3,000-kilometer border within Mexico and the United States. I think it's probably one of the largest in the world. I don't know if the second or third largest. I know the first one is obviously the United States with Canada, but at the end of the day, 3,000 kilometers of border, it's a lot of border. And there are lots of points. Let's say, for example, the Tijuana San Isidro border of the United States. There are lots of migrants in tents outside I don't know the actual translation of this word, of the gareta of migration, like this little house where the officers of the United States, migration officers, release some information or have to deal with the status of seeking asylum or applying for any status in the United States. There have to be, and this is also a problem that Mexico will have to address at some point, because also the narrative of the Mexican government changed. Because I remember when President López Obrador was in his campaign, he said that he was going to be friendly and humanitarian with the migrants, that he was going to open the borders for them. I remember even the first migration wave, or as we call them here, the Caravana Migrante, the first one in 2019, that was so big that all the media was over it. It got the help of the Mexican government. They provided shelter, they provided them with food, and they helped them all the way to the United States. When Trump realized that this was going to be the measures taken by President López Obrador, he changed, and this made also the Mexican administration to change regarding the policy of migration. We are yet to see how the negotiations are going to be held when the crisis starts to intensify, because the numbers are adding up, and it doesn't seem that it's going to stop anytime soon, this big wave of migration.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's no easy solution, like we've said. And I really, really do believe that we will continue discussing and praising or criticizing the steps taken by either the US or the Mexican government. But this is not a problem that will end anytime soon. And I think it might even get worse within the third wave of COVID that is just reaching the US and Mexico, where it's been already there in Europe, and then with the Brazilian strain and the UK strain, which are far more contagious, and no vaccines in most of Latin America, it's gonna be really, really hard. So I think we can close with this, but yeah, let's go with a closing statement, Daniel.
Yeah, so again, thank you, Valeria, for having me in this program. The crisis is not something that is going to change from the night to the morning. It's not something easy to stop. It's a structural problem that requires a solution that really holds up or stands up with the principles of global governance. We need to assess the situation and identify solutions as a region, not as a country. So solutions that involve Central America, Mexico, and the United States. I think that's going to be the ultimate solution in a long term that is going to solve the crisis situation. Yes, President Biden is addressing the causes of migration in Central America, but there's lots of work to do. There's still a long way through to reach this ultimate migration ordered migration policy.
Yeah, I agree with you. Just to close, I do think that for migration to be solved, because I don't think it will be fully solved, because it's not a problem. Like, you don't find a problem with a Canadian going to the US. They have problems with other types of people, minorities going to the US. That's when they have a problem. But that's a whole other topic. Again, we can discuss racism and migration another time. But the main thing here is that you need to deal with migration at the root of the cause, and then you also need to have programs and opportunities for migrants to fully incorporate into the country that they're going. It's going to be a huge crisis. We're going to continue to see this and report this. And I think, just to conclude, I would like to remember everyone that's watching that most of these migrants, even though we see numbers, they are people that have suffered a lot. Sometimes they go for days crossing the country. They risk their life savings. They put everything they have just into getting into that US and having that American dream. So these people are not numbers, they're people with stories, and it's important to have empathy with them. And I think the governmental approach should be dealing with empathy towards them too. But that's it. I will see you next Monday at 4 p.m. here at the Lab on Facebook Live.